The anime begins with a girl crying about the stuffing coming out of her plushie in her white and pristine house. However, her mother says they can buy another one, so she stops crying immediately and throws it in the trash. Meanwhile, someone goes after that same trash, even invading a garbage disposal facility. He's a trash raider. People who guard there see him as a threat to their city. The hooded trash raider picks up a bunch of items and escapes, even easily dodging the guard's bullets. Yet he can't keep that up for long, and one of the projectiles grazes his arm. Still, he's able to escape. Everyone is talking about the incident the next day. Two women blame the tribe's folk, the people who live in the slums. Their city is divided into two. One part is rich, clean, and the image of beauty, while the other is a perfect contrast. It's dirty, and the citizens barely have enough money to do anything. The only thing separating the two sides is a small gate. Rudo, the boy responsible for the trash raid, is repairing the items he collected the day before. His friend Chiwa tries to argue with him, saying it's dangerous, but the boy doesn't care. The rich people discard objects that can still be used, which angers him, and he needs to sell them to get money. Then a few other kids see him and start bad-mouthing Rudo. They try their best to change the image of the slums, but Rudo's father ruined their effort and went on a killing spree. They bully Rudo and say he'll turn out to be a murderer, just like his dad. Chiwa is the only one who disagrees, believing Rudo is a good person. The boy blushes and tries his best to give her the plushie he fixed, but he can't muster up the courage to do that. In the end, her mother calls her before the boy can give her the gift. When he gets home, Regto, his adopted father, messes with him, copying the boy's words from when he tried to give Chiwa the plushie. Still, he gets a bit more serious when he sees that Rudo got hurt in the raid. He scolds him and treats his wound. He also helps the boy treat his hands. He's also afraid the rich people might get Rudo and throw him into the pit, the place where they dispose of criminals. That's where they took Rudo's father as well. Somehow, Rudo's father left the boy with horribly wounded hands. His hands are black and red and never stop hurting, which disgusts the people near him. But Regto gave him gloves that, despite being old, alleviate the pain. Outside their house, a hooded and masked figure watches them menacingly. On his way to give the plushie to the girl, the pit captures Rudo's eyes. It's a literal bottomless pit where people throw garbage and criminals. There's an execution happening at the moment, and the citizens can't help but watch it as if it's right in the open. Chiwa arrives and says she hates that. Rudo tells her what Regto said, and she says that's obvious as he loves him too. When he realizes what she might have meant by saying too, the boy blushes and gives her the plushie. Even though he couldn't say what he felt, he was ecstatic that he gave her the gift. However, his happiness is about to end. When going home, he bumps into a group of guards but pays no mind to what they're doing there. He opens his house's door and is greeted by the awful sight of the masked person stabbing Regto. The murderer beats him and goes away quietly, so Rudo rushes to his adopted father's side. Regto tries to tell him to run, but it's already too late. The guards arrive and blame Rudo for the murder. They take Rudo to the pit and prepare a public execution. The boy begs for people to believe him, but nobody believes him. Even Chiwa says he's just like his father and throws away the gift he gave her. But what shocks him more is seeing the masked figure in the middle of the crowd. As the guards throw him into the pit, Rudo screams that they are all filth and that he'll kill everyone. Then, everything becomes pitch black, and he wakes up in a place filled with trash. There are mountains and mountains of it, showing how much Rudo's city discards there. But the real worrying thing is the enormous monster made of trash staring at the boy. No one ever cares about what happens to a person when they go to the pit, but now Rudo experiences it firsthand. There are giant beasts made of trash in that hell, and they're after him. He tries to escape, but there doesn't seem to be a safe place near him. To make it worse, the awful air barely lets him breathe. He's prepared to accept his death when he remembers Regto. He's the only one who can avenge him, so he stands up to fight. He picks up a pipe and charges at the monsters. He parries one of their attacks and valiantly fights using every object he can find, but it seems hopeless. Still, he doesn't give up. Furious at them and the whole situation, he manages to cut one of them in half. Momentarily, he believes he's out of trouble. However, it's only the start. The beast regenerates and continues to go after him. Even though he escapes its attack, he can't get up and coughs up a lot of blood because of the air. Suddenly, a man with an umbrella gets in front of him and violently puts a mask on the boy's face. The guy tries to tell Rudo to be quiet, but he can't understand and keeps bothering him with questions. Ultimately, the man screams at Rudo, saying they'll attract the monsters called trash beasts, and that he can't kill them with ordinary weapons. Obviously, a horde of creatures instantly appears. Still, they're nothing compared to the mysterious man. His umbrella glows and transforms, becoming more powerful. From then on, the beast can't get close to him as the weapon deflects their attacks and destroys them by spinning incredibly fast. The biggest monster tries to vomit an explosive acid at him, but it doesn't work and he kills it in seconds. The man's name is Engine, and he says he's a cleaner. Unfortunately, Rudo doesn't get to ask him anything else, as the boy collapses to the ground. Rudo recalls a legend that Regto told him when he was younger. If people care enough about an object, a soul will inhabit it. Because of that, Rudo grew to think objects were alive. But his thoughts are interrupted when he wakes up and sees Engine chained him up. Now the man is taking him somewhere unknown. Rudo tries to ask him many things, but Engine doesn't answer all of them. He says that the place he calls home is the sphere, and Rudo can't go back there now. Not only is it in the sky, but it also moves, making its location hard to find. When Rudo insists on more questions, Engine leaves him alone in the middle of a dump. Many masked guys arrive there and ask him if he's a spherite. When he says so, they seem friendly and help him out of the chains. However, they soon lock him up inside a truck, chaining him up even harder. The spherites throw their trash there without batting an eye, which causes the trash beasts, poisonous gas, and more problems. Because of that, all of them hate the sphere and its citizens. They plan on selling Rudo, but one of them rejoices in torturing him before. He shoves food waste into Rudo's mouth, imagining the boy had never touched trash before. However, Rudo uses the opportunity to bite off his fingers. He's sick of people putting labels on him. As he remembers Regto's words again, he suddenly imbues the chains with a red energy and frees himself. Engine watches that from far away and gets happy, knowing his intuition was right. The boy is a giver, someone who can give life to objects and draw out their power. The chain transforms and he scares the thugs. Then he picks up a car wheel and transforms it too, surprising them once again. Apparently, it isn't common to do that with more than one object. When he's about to hit the last man standing, Engine stops him. The object turns to ash and the boy's nose bleeds a little. After seeing his potential, Engine makes him an offer. If Rudo joins the cleaners, he'll tell him everything he needs to know. However, the boy isn't too excited about it. While a doctor treats Rudo, Engine speaks with someone about a talented individual he recently discovered, expressing the need to meet up soon. Afterwards, he takes the boy out for lunch, demonstrating a kindness he hadn't shown before. The protagonist also realizes once again that the ground isn't what he expected. It is bustling with cities and people. Engine explains to him the concept of anima, which is the force of emotions. This force is responsible for creating trash beasts, creatures that typically avoid cities but can occasionally invade them. As a result, they cannot be defeated with ordinary weapons. Only the same kind of power can overcome them. To combat these beasts, they must use their vital instruments, which are objects that a person has cared for over a long period, allowing anima to inhabit them. The cleaners are essentially givers, using their abilities to combat the trash beasts. However, very few people possess the skill to control anima effectively, so they are always recruiting new members. Regto realizes he was right all along. Emotions do reside within objects. Engine's praise of Regto's gloves nearly brings him to tears. But just then, Engine reveals a darker side again, informing Rudo that he has sold all of his clothes and has been using that money to pay for their meals. Before Rudo can respond angrily, Engine leaves, claiming he's going to find Rudo's trainer. Suddenly, a cat grabs a small bag containing money from Rudo's clothes, and the boy chases after it into an alley. Spotting a stick, he quickly picks it up and uses it to retrieve his money. However, a cleaner emerges from the shadows, angry at Rudo for taking his stick. This cleaner is Zanka Nijiku, the very person responsible for training Rudo. He's furious, but Rudo manages to defuse the situation by explaining everything and apologizing. As a result, the cleaner calms down and transforms into a different person, which surprises Rudo. Noticing that Zanka's expression has changed to a smile, Rudo mirrors the expression and smiles back. Rudo struggles to smile naturally, which makes him appear untrustworthy. When he attempts to correct this with another smile, it results in an even creepier grin. Zanka, filled with anger, believes Rudo is teasing him, and they end up fighting. To Zanka's surprise, Rudo picks up a random object from the trash and magically transforms it, revealing that anything his gloves touch can become a useful tool. Zanka easily overpowers Rudo thanks to his greater experience. However, the situation changes when Zanka realizes that Rudo is using a plunger as a weapon. As Rudo waves it around, he fills the area with garbage and poop. Terrified, Zonka runs for his life while desperately trying to explain to Rudo what he's doing. Unfortunately for Zonka, he trips, causing Rudo to smear poop all over his clothes and even a bit on his face. When Engine sees this, he bursts out laughing, leaving both boys feeling even more humiliated. With the fight over, they head to the cleaner's HQ, accompanied by Ryu, another cleaner. Rudo arrives at the cleaner HQ where he meets Semu, the receptionist. Her vital tool is her glasses, which she uses to gather all kinds of information. However, when she looks at Rudo, she notices a strange blur that surprises her. She chooses not to mention it. Semu only provides general insights into the boy's physical abilities, but Engine senses that something is off. After that, they head into the cafeteria to meet some of the other cleaners, and it turns out there are many of them present. So, they decide to leave introductions for later. They head to meet the boss so that Rudo can officially join the team. Before entering the office, Engine reminds Rudo that he needs to view this as an exchange. He can't simply walk in and demand help. However, when Rudo opens the door, he discovers that the boss is not there. In fact, the boss is currently on a trip, and no one knows when he will return. Ryu has a plan. Since Rudo still can't officially join their group, she decides that he should accompany her on a mission as a trainee. This way, he can learn more about the job and gain a better understanding of the ground. He agrees to the idea and accompanies her to a polluted area where trash gathers. They are also joined by 3 supporters who are fellow members who assist the givers. The trash beasts appear and immediately scare Rudo, but Ryu remains completely unconcerned. Even when more powerful creatures arrive, she shows no worry, considering them all weak. However, a huge monster destroys the barricade that was blocking them, shocking the cleaners. To Rudo's surprise, this only excites the girl to fight, rather than frightening her. Ryu throws a pair of scissors into the air, and they grow so large that she begins to wield them with her legs. She then jumps towards the horde and effortlessly destroys most of the monsters. However, other trash beasts are still lurking around, so everyone needs to stay vigilant. One of the supporters must intervene to stop the monster from attacking Rudo, who has been paying no attention to his surroundings. Seeing how everyone is working together, and Rudo's initial thought was only to give them a hand while he tries to go back up, he feels ashamed. When one of the supporters falls to his knees, the boy jumps in with a pipe to help, not wanting to be a burden. However, he doesn't know how to use his powers yet, and the pipe he's holding takes a weird shape, similar to a web. Just as the monster is about to shatter his defense, Ryu rushes in and saves him, praising his courage for risking himself to protect someone else. She immediately turns back to the battle, slashing the massive trash beast clean in half, yet it refuses to die. Their clash grows so fierce that the very ground collapses beneath them, forcing a supporter to step in and rescue Rudo once again. The supporter urges him to remember his goal and keep running toward it, reminding the boy that he can learn by watching them fight. Meanwhile, Ryu slices off the creature's hair and spots a strange light glimmering inside its head. She charges straight through and finally brings down the trash beast. But in that moment, she realizes the glow was actually a vital instrument powering the monster's something they never imagined could exist. Elsewhere, one of Rudo's kidnappers wakes up in isolation. When he mutters the word spherite, a hooded figure suddenly takes notice. A sleepy Zonka wakes up in the middle of the night and discovers a party happening in the canteen. Ryu explains that it's a welcome party for Rudo, but the boy is too sad to celebrate. He has felt this way ever since his powers failed during a mission. Just then, Grizz, the supporter who assisted him, arrives to cheer him up. Despite this, Rudo expresses that he didn't contribute anything during the mission. Although he attempted to help Follow, the other supporter, he made a mistake at the most crucial moment. Even back in his hometown, he always needed Recto to rescue him from his problems. He consistently fails to meet other people's expectations. Grizz tells the boy more about Follow. The boy aspires to eradicate the trash beats, but he must embrace a giving attitude to achieve that. To prepare for his future role, he has become a supporter, focusing on training an object to transform it into a vital instrument. Even though he is a giver, he remains a supporter because he wants to demonstrate their importance to the organization. Rudo should follow this example and concentrate on his own goals, rather than worrying about what others expect from him. At that moment, Grizz pats Rudo on the head, which nearly brings him to tears, but he holds back because Engine arrives to tease him. Soon after, Zonka and Ryu join them, and they all go to eat together. Meanwhile, the mysterious hooded guy continues to torture the mercenary. When the man pleads for him to stop, he ultimately kills him. This violent figure has gathered all the information he can about Rudo, and now wants him as a trophy. The next day, Simyu calls Zanka and several supporters to discuss a new job. She also reaches out to Rudo since it will involve him. A trash beast has attacked a merchant's cargo, which includes a living spherite. It's rare to encounter a spherite that is still alive, so finding another one might provide them with valuable clues. Rudo agrees to join the effort, even though he doesn't have a talent for using his instrument. As they walk to the meeting spot, Rudo learns that Gris doesn't use weapons, only a small knife for self-defense. He primarily fights with his bare knuckles, but always carries a safety amulet and prays to it before each mission. This reminds Rudo once again of how kind Gris is. Once they encounter the merchant, Rudo asks her if she is interested in trading the spherite, but she denies it. However, he remains skeptical about her response. Zanka shares his suspicion, finding it strange that a trash beast would kidnap a person. As they enter a building, they see someone sitting in a chair. Suddenly, the woman screams that it's the spherite and begins to push the group closer to her. But as they approach, everyone realizes it's just a doll. Unfortunately, it's too late. The ground beneath them collapses and they all fall into a hole. At that moment, the merchant points at Rudo, claiming he is the spherite she wants to obtain, and then she transforms into mud. That's when two raiders, givers from a group of sadistic bandits, appear. Rudo and all the supporters run to search for a way out, while Zanka stays behind to fight them. He even mocks the mercenaries for wanting to get Rudo, but he doesn't understand their objective. They want to find out how the boy crossed the border, something that Zanka has never heard of and doesn't know what it is. The woman wields her instrument to create mud dolls, forming an army with them. Initially, Zanka thinks it will be an easy fight. For a short time, it actually seems that way. However, her partner has the ability to hide inside the dolls and strike when Zanka is unprepared. Their brawl continues like this for a while, with the duo consistently outmaneuvering the cleaner, no matter what tactics he attempts. Despite his lack of skill in fighting actual people, Zanka is well-versed in the use of his vital instrument. He strikes the ground with his staff, using it as a sensor to locate where the man is hiding. Once he resolves that issue, he quickly defeats the duo with just 2 strikes. As he finally begins to relax, believing the fight is over, another mysterious raider, who has learned about Rudo, appears behind him. The cleaners discovered an exit from the building, prompting some supporters to leave in search of help. However, Rudo, Follow, and Grizz remain behind to locate Zanka. When they notice someone approaching, they initially believed it was their partner bringing good news. Instead, it turned out to be Jabber, the raider who had unexpectedly appeared behind Zanka. He had not killed the cleaner, but had defeated him using the venom in his claws. Now Jabber is after Rudo and demands that he talk to someone. As Jabber approaches, Follow and Grizz attempt to attack him, but he skillfully evades their efforts. Despite this, Grizz steps forward, declaring that he will protect Rudo at all costs. The boy, however, insists that he can save himself and tells Grizz not to intervene. Unfortunately, it's too late. In an instant, Jabber pierces Grizz with his claws, leaving a gaping hole in his chest as he collapses to the floor, bleeding. Rudo crashes down and recalls the death of his foster father. The anime then takes us back to Rudo's childhood, when he was even more fragile. Recto opens the door to Rudo's room and finds him repeatedly banging his head against the wall, already bruised and bleeding. Recto stops him and asks why he's doing this, but Rudo doesn't have an answer. He simply knows that he's filled with anger about something. Recto imagines that the boy must feel worthless and empty after being abandoned by his parents, so he takes him to the city. Together they explore the slums, searching for things that might make the boy happier. They try various activities, from playing soccer to cooking, but nothing seems to work. Just when they are about to give up, Rudo spots someone from the affluent side of town throwing away their trash. As they leave, the boy rushes to the other side and pulls a doll's head out of a trash bag. He starts to cry, saying that it's wrong to throw it away. It's only a little damage, so there's no reason for people to discard it. As his tears flow, the boy exclaims that he wants to fix it. Recto realizes that Rudo isn't just identifying with the doll because he was abandoned. Rather, he is finding value in something that others see as worthless. Back in the present, Rudo activates Grizz's luck amulet, transforming it into a giant entity that surrounds him. This revelation helps the supporter understand why the boy was unable to use his powers before. It's not that he can turn anything into a vital instrument, but rather that he can extract the maximum potential from anything he touches. Meanwhile, Follow tries to stop Grizz's bleeding as Rudo and Jabber engage in battle. No matter how hard the raider tries, he cannot land a hit on Rudo. The boy explains that this is because Grizz prayed to the amulet for a safe return, which means no injuries. As a result, the amulet provides him with the best possible defense. Jabber recognizes the usefulness of the amulet, but insists that he won't be defeated if its only power is to help Rudo evade attacks. However, Rudo then tells him that he still doesn't understand anything. Rudo remains unmoved while Jabber is the one who keeps advancing. Still confused, Jabber attacks again and learns the harsh reality of the amulet's power. With the amulet's ability, Rudo is able to stop Jabber, who begins to fall slowly. Rudo seizes the opportunity to deliver a solid punch to Jabber's face. As Jabber begins to grasp the true nature of the amulet, he tries new tactics, such as creating a smokescreen. Despite this effort, it proves ineffective. Even when Rudo is not directly looking at him, the amulet still detects Jabber's attacks. After being tossed around multiple times, Jabber finds himself in both a literal and figurative corner. However, he has a new idea. He notices that whenever rocks are flying toward Rudo, the boy has to dodge them on his own. This means the amulet only detects attacks that possess ill intent. To exploit this, Jabber uses the toxins on his claws to induce a berserk state. If he is acting purely on instinct, perhaps the amulet won't protect Rudo. The screen fades to black as round 2 begins, and Rudo's chances of winning start to dwindle. Jabber is demonstrating that his point is valid. After using the venom on himself, his attacks lack any hostility, making it impossible for Rudo to defend against them. Rudo attempts to intervene, but the talisman proves ineffective. As the raider goes into a rage, he gets closer to hitting Rudo with each passing second. Jabber's attacks become more vicious than ever, leaving Rudo feeling helpless and unsure of how to respond. Suddenly, Zanka's stick strikes Jabber on the neck, pinning him to the ground. Although the cleaner isn't fully healed, he can move. He witnessed part of Rudo's battle and has a basic understanding of the amulet's power. Now he has a plan to save them both. Since Rudo can't defend himself from Jabber, and Zanka is restricted in his movements, they need to cooperate. The plan is for Zanka to attack Rudo, who will then guide him in the right direction to effectively hit the criminal. As soon as Jabber wakes up, Rudo provokes Zanka, who becomes enraged and attacks him with all his strength. Although the bad news is that the cleaner genuinely tries to hurt the boy, the good news is that their plan is working. Rudo skillfully redirects Zanka's strike, causing him to hit the raider instead. They continue their strategy until Jabber is on the ground. Rudo quickly and cleverly maneuvers Zanka, adjusting his every step and angle. The raider becomes an easy target in his weakened state. In Zanka's final strike, he lands a powerful blow to the raider's head, making him collapse on the floor. However, the cleaner can't move after this, and Grizz's amulet turns to ash, slowly fading away. Rudo is in shock, fearing that he has done something wrong and destroyed an important object. He doesn't have time to dwell on it, though, because Jabber catches him during one of his attacks. The poison finally reaches Rudo, and he collapses. At the same time, Jabber uses his left claws to inflict pain upon himself, which allows him to move, even though it doesn't cure him. He then poisons Zanka once again and takes Rudo away. Once Jabber gets back to the surface, he notices something strange. However, it's already too late. Engine strikes him with his umbrella with tremendous force, sending him crashing into a wall. Jabber realizes he is not alone. Ryu and 2 other cleaners are with Engine. After the supporters left the building, they manage to call for help, which explains their presence. Just then, the supporters re-enter the building to search for Grizz. Jabber prepares for another confrontation when a girl with blue hair grabs him and says it's time to go. She's Chthoni, another raider. He refuses to leave because he wants to fight again. However, he gives up when she grabs him with greater strength and mentions that their boss had a big smile on his face. Then she activates her ability, creating a manhole in the wall that turns into a portal. Before they enter, Rudo tries to get up and vows that he'll have his revenge, surprising Jabber. What surprises Jabber even more are Rudo's gloves. He remarks that it's impressive for Rudo to have something from that series, but Rudo doesn't understand what he means. The raider tells him that next time he'll be prepared and steps through the portal. Later, everyone reunites above ground, and Zanka and Grizz are safe. However, Grizz is still quite injured. As he lies on the ground, resting and waiting for the others to leave, Rudo apologizes for breaking the talisman. Despite this, Grizz is very understanding. He tells Rudo that he is happy the instrument helped him and that he did a good thing. Rudo was feeling depressed and angry with himself. He couldn't stand that the same tragedy that had struck Recto was now happening with Grizz. People always seemed to die protecting him, and he couldn't believe that. Despite everything he had been through, he hadn't changed as much as he thought he would. Then Engine suggested that he should pay his respects to Grizz. Imagine his surprise when he walked in to see Grizz smiling and talking happily in his bed. Now, instead of feeling sorrow, Rudo was left feeling embarrassed and confused. He truly couldn't believe his eyes. The cleaners have a member with healing powers named Aisha, who saves Grizz in his critical state. Showcasing his maturity, the supporter praises Rudo, Ishia, and Follow for their efforts. He expresses his happiness that his amulet could help in that situation, reassuring Rudo not to be sad about it disintegrating. Then the boss finally appears. Since Rudo has changed his mind about being there temporarily and has demonstrated that his powers can help others, he is officially admitted as a cleaner. The man named Arca also wants to speak with Rudo in private. The boss mentioned that the border jabber referred to suggests the raiders are interested in something related to the sphere. There is a story about a traveler who encountered a woman living in no man's land near that area. When he asked her what she was doing, she replied that she was watching the people who fell from above. She also mentioned that there are individuals who come and go without dying. If Rudo talks to her, she can lead him to the people she encountered. This way, he might discover the secrets to crossing the border safely and return home. Therefore, he insists that he will definitely find her, regardless of the risks involved. However, he becomes overly excited, and Follow has to intervene to prevent him from going alone. He only agrees to listen when Engine points out that he doesn't fully understand his powers yet and needs to stay behind. They also discuss the fact that the raiders are actually givers. Rudo had always believed that bad people didn't treat their possessions well. So it's surprising to learn that those individuals care so much about their essential tools. Rudo felt bored in his room, unsure of what to do. Fortunately, Ryu knocked on his door and offered to show him around the HQ, taking him through every corner of the cleaner's house. However, there was something even more enticing. She could give him sweets. In his previous environment, only wealthy people could afford them, so he had never had the chance to taste any. When he sees the sweets that Engine has, he becomes instantly enamored. The variety is so overwhelming that he can't control himself and doesn't even consider sharing. In the end, he goes overboard and eats the entire stock. As a result, he gains so much weight that he needs to go on a diet. His training then begins. Zonka gives him a knife, but despite remembering how he transformed Griss's talisman, he can't transform himself. Zonka then has an idea. He brings a pile of garbage and asks him to search for anything that interests him. As he examines the pile, he transforms 3 different objects. However, he soon starts to experience a nosebleed, indicating that he has reached his limit. Engine explains that the higher the quality of an instrument, referring to the care it receives, the greater its power will be. This enhanced power may come with side effects like his nosebleeds. Zonka questions whether the events might be influenced by the series. Almost as if she can read his mind, Ryu asks Rudo about it, but Rudo is unaware of anything. The scene then shifts to the Raiders' base, where their boss reflects on various matters, such as Rudo, a city of art, and the vital instruments. It is at this moment that we learn the name of the series, the Watchmen series, and the boss reveals that he possesses part of it. Rudo washes his gloves with noticeable pain, groaning as he tries to finish the task. When he enters his bedroom, he finds Ryu waiting for him in his bed. She heard him and wanted to check if everything was okay. It's then that she learns Rudo doesn't really know why his hands are in such condition. Only his parents are aware of the reason. This resonates with her, and she comments on how our parents leave us with many things, both good and bad. The following day, they begin preparing for their mission. Since Rudo's mask isn't ready yet, they decide to go after Gob, a giver known for his ability to draw spells on people. Although he frequently visits their headquarters, they haven't seen him in a while. Therefore, they plan to visit his home, located in the city of Graffiti, also known as Canvas Town. The team will consist of the usual members, Ryu, Zonka, and Engine as givers, along with Follow, Grizz, and Tomi as supporters. Additionally, some new faces will be joining them, Delman and Tamsi, cleaners from the team, eager. While Tamsi is calm, Delman is built like a tank and incredibly loud. Despite his imposing presence, he is very sweet and feels compassion for Rudo's struggles. Like many cities in the area, Canvas Town is shaped like a dome, providing protection from falling trash. However, it has an additional form of defense. Rudo and the cleaners can enter the city's gates with ease, but 2 other men cannot. This is likely because they have bad intentions. Gob has the ability to create drawings with protective effects, such as a gate that prevents people with bad intentions from passing through. The group wants him to make a similar drawing for them to ensure their safety during an upcoming mission. Suddenly, a child bumps into Engine, crying, and then runs off. Before they can process what just happened, the mayor appears and informs them that Gob died that morning. The entire group stands in silence as the mayor explains that the painter passed away due to body pollution, He often painted outside of safe zones and likely did not wear his mask frequently. As a result, toxins gradually accumulated in his body. Rudo recalls witnessing Gob at the cleaner's HQ, an experience that filled him with horror. Despite Tamsi's reassurance that he shouldn't worry, Rudo feels guilty as a spherite for contributing to all the trash and pollution. Gob's vital instrument is the concept of generation, which means it is passed down from one person to another. This transfer is one of the reasons it possesses such powerful abilities. This time, the individual set to inherit it is the girl they saw crying earlier. The mayor deeply regrets that someone so young already has to bear such a heavy burden. Engine tells the mayor not to worry about their mission for now and that they will be leaving soon. He then says goodbye to the girl, Remlin Tysark. However, she doesn't react in the way he expects. She suddenly jumps up, screaming, "No more crying!" and runs to the rooftop with a vital instrument in hand, declaring that it's time to celebrate. Although she feels sad, she knows that Gob won't be able to find peace if everyone is crying. To honor his life, she wants to throw a party. The instrument transforms into a paintbrush, which she uses to draw a mark on the floor. This mark causes several spray paint cans to explode into fireworks. As a result, the entire city grabs their own paint and tools, joining in the celebration. The enchanting sight captivates Rudo, clearly showing him that something magical is happening. Let's rewind time to 1 hour earlier to understand how Amo defeated Engine. The girl joyfully leads the cleaners to her house, an enormous tower located in the middle of the desert. As they ascend to her room, she insists that they remove their masks. Eventually, they relent and take them off. Amo is delighted to see their faces and compliments their appearance. Engine gives Rudo a signal, prompting the boy to step forward and make his request. He expresses a desire to meet someone who can enter and exit the sphere, asking her to introduce him to that person. However, Amo interrupts him before he can finish, shifting the focus to the group's crushes. The others are puzzled by her question, while Engine suspects that discussing their crushes is the price for getting the information. As he continues to speak, he notices that the girl becomes increasingly confused. Amo starts repeating, "This is weird," over and over, as if she's losing her mind and becomes furious. She believed that someone finally wanted to talk to her, but it turns out they only wanted to use her. Engine lies to her face, claiming that he likes her, but that only exacerbates the situation. The girl tells the big man to take care of him, and Delman suddenly sprays Engine with his hose. As a result, Engine falls to his knees, leading us to the present. No one understands what happened, but Rudo notices that Amo's boots have the same branding as his gloves. However, she doesn't care. The girl once again asks them about their crushes, a big smile on her face. Zonka is the next to confront her, but things don't go well for him either. She ends up crying after he insults her, and Delman nearly crushes Zonka in response. The cleaner proudly declares that Amo is his reason for fighting and protecting her is his sacred duty. Tamsi looks confused, but he explains that Delman doesn't appear to be under mind control. He emphasizes that he would never use his vital instrument to attack his friends. His hose has the unique power to make things grow by absorbing more water. However, if this happens to a person, it can cause them to pop like a balloon. That is precisely why Delman would never use his abilities against another human being. To make matters worse, Amo reveals that she has another fan in the group. Suddenly, Rudo starts having visions of the guards from the sphere insulting and belittling him. These visions are so intense that he can't even see Delman's attacks, only managing to dodge them thanks to Tamsi. Ryu attempts to reach Amo to stop her, but Zonka shouts at her, insisting that she is making a mistake. Nevertheless, she ignores him, believing she cannot trust anyone until they find the girl's fan. This distrust causes her to take her eyes off Delman's next attack, which blasts a hole through the wall and nearly hits her. Amo laughs about how they can't fully trust one another, stating that everything would be easier if they communicated directly with her. Meanwhile, Rudo begins to perceive Tamsi and Zanka as the guards from the sphere. Zanka then picks up on a strange smell, prompting Amo to comment that, for her, memories are often linked to nostalgic scents. Suddenly, she transforms into the girl Rudo admired in his vision. Rudo begins shouting at his illusion, and they soon realize that Amo is also taking control of him. The girl explains her power to them, revealing that she creates a scent that allows them to see the person they love. Tamsi and Zanka put on their masks, convinced that victory is now guaranteed. However, that's far from the truth. Rudo jumps in to protect the girl, telling the guards that he now has the ability to safeguard others. To make matters worse, Follow and Ryu seem to be under the girl's control. Tamsi realizes it's time to use his vital instrument, although he would prefer not to use it against a peer. Rudo is angry at Remlin because she painted his face to look like a clown. They begin discussing her powers, but her explanations only make things more confusing. Even Engine becomes irritated with her explanations. It becomes clear that her ability is something free that obeys the user's will. Finally, she gets to work and draws a protection spell on everyone. Before leaving, the girl surprises Engine and the mayor once again by transforming her vital instrument into a tattoo machine. They discover that she can change its shape to suit her needs in the moment. However, they decide against allowing her to use it in that way. Rudo expresses his gratitude for what she revealed to him earlier and mentions that he plans to visit again. With a smile, the girl replies that she also intends to go to the cleaner's HQ someday. Engine takes a detour to a house filled with trash as a gift for Rudo. Before he can finish explaining that he wants Rudo to choose good weapons, Rudo is too excited to listen. He climbs the pile of garbage, grabbing everything he can as if his life depends on it. When they arrive at their headquarters, Rudo meets someone who always seems to be on cloud nine. August, the cleaner's artisan, is responsible for creating their gear, and he has finally finished Rudo's full-face mask. The boy is not pleased to discover that the man took his measurements while he was asleep. Once that issue is resolved, they need to complete one more task before starting their mission. They must synchronize their chokers, which serve as their communication devices, with Rudo's. So, each member of the team cuts a small hole in their fingers and gives one drop of their blood to Rudo's choker. In turn, the boy has to do the same for all of their devices. Now they'll be able to communicate properly. Soon they arrive at Penta, the desert no man's land. Rudo gets a chance to make his full face, a yellow and red mask, and his instrument, now named 3R, shine. But something is brewing far away from them. At the Raiders' headquarters, Jabber asks if what they are looking for is at Penta. His boss replies that he'll find out when they get there. Meanwhile, in No Man's Land, everyone is easily defeating the trash beasts. At the same time, Tommy is documenting all the new creatures they encounter, complete with detailed notes and illustrations. Rudo acquires a keyboard and activates his 3R to transform it into a weapon. As he does this, a mysterious girl senses the change and glances in his direction. Unaware of her presence, he continues fighting and delivers the final blow, using the keys to stamp the monster's back. After the battle, as they regroup to continue their mission, Rudo notices someone through the smoke. However, when Tamsi and Delman call his name, the figure disappears. They discuss Rudo's performance, oblivious to the fact that the strange girl is watching them. Finally, she decides to reveal herself. She claims to be the one from the story they heard and invites them to her house since she isn't wearing a mask. Engine appears untroubled because he wants to discuss things first. He believes that if a fight breaks out, he can handle it. However, as the screen fades to black, a strange noise is heard, and we see Engine fall to his knees and collapse inside the girl's house. Rudo watches in shock while she smiles. Delman is creating a garden for his wife. She has never seen flowers growing on the ground, so even if just one plant survives, it will make her happy. Then her face fades away and is replaced by Amos. She has Delman, Follow, Rudo, and Ryu under her control. However, they don't get a chance to attack because Tamsi activates his crucial instrument. It's a distaff, and its ropes form a nest that ensnares all of Amos' fans. The more they struggle to free themselves, the tighter the rope becomes. Despite this, Amo hasn't won the battle. She is indifferent to their well-being and insists that they will continue to obey her, even if it causes them pain. In response, Tamsi devises a new plan. He winds the rope, trapping the 4 cleaners in a large roll. He also manages to capture Amo within what remains of the nest. He and Zanka seem quite confident, but the situation is not over yet. When she cries out and begs someone to save her, Rudo and the others start doing everything they can to escape. They don't stop moving even as their blood begins to pour out. In a dramatic turn, Tamsi stuns them all with his final move. He strikes his staff on the ground with great force, causing a rope to start spinning. Its speed becomes so intense that it drills through the floor, damaging part of the castle and sending the cleaners crashing to the ground. Even Zanka can't believe what he did. As he argues with Tamsi about killing their friends, she reminds him of the drawing that Remlin made of them. This drawing will protect them from harm, even from fatal wounds. Suddenly, all of them start getting up, including Rudo, who had a hole in his belly. Miraculously, it heals within seconds, as if it had never been there. To Amo's surprise, even Engine is up again. Engine removes one of her shoes, which deactivates her powers. He had been awake for a while, pretending to be asleep, just waiting for the right moment to act. As the others start to wake up, Tamsi explains to Delman what happened. The man was so delusional that he believed the person he loved had come back to life. Sanka realizes how cruel that ability is, especially for those who have lost loved ones. Each of the cleariners controlled by Amo appears completely devastated. Meanwhile, far away, the leader of the cleaners asks Semyu what she saw in Rudo. She explains that there is something unique about him that she has never encountered before, and it's not related to his powers. It truly is something deeper within the boy. As she speaks, Rudo takes off his mask and approaches Amo. The girl smiles, thinking he couldn't get enough of her, but she is mistaken. Suddenly, Rudo punches her in the face. Before she even has time to react, he gets on top of her and begins to beat her up severely. Meanwhile, Semyu feels that something is growing within him, a curse that has the potential to destroy the entire world. The anime then focuses on Semyu's inner turmoil, revealing a kind of egg-shaped red object inside him. Grizz and Engine pull him away from Amo, holding him back as he almost resembles a devil, intent on enacting his revenge. No matter what Grizz says, he retorts, insisting that Amo tried to kill them and laughed about it. However, Engine knows the right questions to ask. He inquires about what they should do with the information, prompting Rudo to finally realize his mistake. As a result, the two of them decide to go somewhere else to talk. When Rudo was on the sphere, he would become angry and violent very quickly. To cope with this, he learned to bottle up his feelings. Now that he's on the ground, he realizes he's still the same boy he was years ago. He hasn't changed or grown up. In contrast, Engine shares his thoughts on his taste in women and the mistakes he made in that regard. He came to understand this when he faced them directly. Rudo has just come to terms with his own shortcomings. For both him and Engine, the only way forward is up. This realization lightens the burden on Rudo's shoulders, and he stands up, ready to apologize to Amo. Meanwhile, Tomi tries to befriend Amo by removing her mask and expressing her love for romance. This encourages Amo to open up, and she talks about the angel who gave her the boots, sharing that it was someone who could travel between the sphere and the ground. A flashback of Amo's life story unfolds. As a child, her mother introduced her to a man who claimed he would love her forever. The girl, innocent and naive, found this idea beautiful, but did not realize that her mother was selling her to a pedophile. The man took her to a castle where she still resides and showered her with gifts. As she grew older, he told her that he obtained these gifts from his job. He was both a trafficker and a giver, yet people consistently mistreated him, labeling him as creepy. He wanted to engage in their usual ritual to calm down. Just as Amo was about to say that she didn't want to participate anymore because her heart raced and she struggled to catch her breath, he told her that was a sign of love. Once again, Amo's mind played tricks on her, filtering out all the negative experiences she faced. After completing their ritual, two masked individuals suddenly opened the door to the room. One of them was wearing the same mask that Regto's killer had used. The creepy man attempted to defend himself with his prized boots. Intensified, they began to physically fight one another. In the midst of the struggle, Amo accidentally pushed the man out of the castle, and he fell to his death. With that, the boots became hers alone. As her story concludes, the cleaners inquire about the angel. However, she is not very helpful. She doesn't know how he crossed the border or where he landed. Despite everything, she claims she saw him again a month earlier, right when Rudo went to the ground. As the boy approaches her to talk, he notices she is drawing the angel, which has the same mask as his foster father's killer. This sends Rudo spiraling back into madness. He envisions the angel and their partner, beaten and bleeding on the floor next to Regto's grave. Just as his thoughts begin to turn even more disturbing, Amo speaks to him. She states that they are the same. The instruments they use fit those who feel incomplete. The boots helped her feel more human and helped her realize what the creepy man had done to her. After that experience, she kept trying to connect with people, but it never worked out. That's why she isn't angry with Rudo. She understands that everyone struggles with this and often resorts to violence instead of forming true connections. In response, Rudo suggests they learn how to connect with others together. He extends his hand in a gesture of friendship, and the girl smiles at him. They leave the castle, and Amo decides to stay behind to sort some things out. Rudo assures her that he will keep in touch, which makes her happy. However, that happiness is short-lived. As she closes her door, contemplating a sleepover for next time, someone appears behind her. We only hear her screams, and later, we see Jabber emerging from the desert. The raiders' leader stood up and declared that it's time to begin. The group is discussing their injuries. Gremlin's healing abilities can only mend fatal damage, so some members are still suffering from other attacks. To help, Engine takes them to Alice Stilsa. When they arrive at her office, it is revealed that she is the grandmother of August and Aisha. After some time, Aisha and Alice manage to heal everyone. Before they leave, August reminds them to be cautious around the cloud. Rudo doesn't understand what that is, so they explain. Sometimes the sphere shifts, causing more trash to fall to the ground, which creates what seems like a trash storm. While trying to protect themselves from it, Rudo mentions that he feels like he saw something when he crossed the border, but he can't remember what it was. Suddenly, Engine receives a call from Semu. She informs him that they are almost at the cleaners' headquarters and advises him to enter through the back. They are currently dealing with some pests, a group of marauders. The bandits are armed and are threatening Semu in front of the gate, demanding the spherite. Then, they fire a bazooka, hitting the building. After that, the group acts all high and mighty, but they soon realize that their attack didn't have any effect. This is because the cleaners have a gifter who creates a barrier that protects the location. Semu opens the front door and mocks them. One of the marauders fires a bazooka at her, but things don't go as he expected. Thanks to her vital instrument, she not only avoids the rocket but also catches it and sends it back in their direction. While dodging a storm of bullets, she effortlessly avoids all their attacks and knocks them out one by one. Engine and the others arrive just in time to see her standing over the pile of bodies. Meanwhile, the cleaners learn from the marauders that someone disclosed information about the spherite at a local bar. They decide to investigate, hoping to uncover more details. Their best guess is that the raiders are behind this, likely to gather information on HQ's defenses in preparation for an attack. Despite the serious nature of their conversation, they are casually eating and laughing. Rudo can't believe they are so carefree after what happened and insists that they should remain on alert. After a few minutes, 3 other cleaners arrive to assist with their mission. They are Gita, Hebi, and Fantasia, a girl dressed in dinosaur-themed pajamas along with Dear Santa, the girl who previously stole candy from Rudo. Their leader, Santa Bro, is also present. As Rudo quietly complains about the cleaner's attitude, a man wearing a hood approaches him. He asks Rudo if someone is pursuing them and warns him to be cautious of the raiders. The man mentions that since the raiders have a new boss, they will go to any lengths to get what they want. Suddenly, he recalls what the raiders are after and produces a pair of Amo's shoes. Rudo is left speechless as the man removes his hood, introducing himself as the leader of the raiders. Another member of the group, also wearing a hood, takes it off to reveal themselves as Chthoni. Rudo and the other cleaners leap into action to attack her, but it's too late. Chthoni uses her powerful instrument to open a portal that captures all of them. The only ones left behind are the supporters, who couldn't reach the portal in time. When the cleaners open their eyes, they find themselves in a place filled with manholes that resembles a sewer. In front of them stand the raiders, including familiar faces like Jabber, along with some new members as both groups face each other, and Rudo asks them where Amo is. Engine criticizes the raiders for their poor attempt to capture Rudo, noting that they brought some unexpected complications with them. However, their boss claims he had foreseen this eventuality. Suddenly, as he checks his clock, a wave of debris overwhelms the area and sends all the cleaners into a hole. The only one left behind is Rudo, as the enemy boss grabs him just in time. As Zanka and the others are engulfed by the trash, Engine attempts to go with the flow. Soon he encounters a bifurcation, forcing him to split up from his teammate. Meanwhile, several portals open behind the raiders, and each of them enters a different one. Jabber taunts Rudo, advising him to play nice with their boss while they entertain themselves with his friends. After that, the enemy boss introduces himself as Zodal Typhon. He proposes a collaboration with Rudo to destroy the sphere together. Although he has never seen the place, he is confident that he and Rudo share the same vision. Despite this connection, Rudo tries to brush it aside and asks Zodal about Amo once more. He insists that the enemy should stop changing the subject, but Zodal argues that Rudo is the one doing just that. Zodal points out that he was asked a question and should respond. Rudo then compares Zodal to Amo. However, he found it difficult to deal with Amo because she wouldn't talk to him. With Zodal, the challenge is that he ensnares Rudo with his words. After a while, Zodal breaks the silence and asks Rudo why he joined the cleaners. When he notices that Rudo only wants to return to the sphere, Zodal questions whether he is satisfied working with people who do not share the same objective. Meanwhile, Ryu wakes up underground after the flood of trash and realizes that one of the raiders is with her. She soon understands that the enemies have split up the cleaners, with each one pursuing a different opponent. Additionally, we learn that Jabber is once again facing Zanka. As Jabber rushes to attack Zanka, the cleaner focuses on one goal, kill or be killed. They engage in a fierce battle that remains evenly matched until Jabber suddenly stops. He notices a bubbly puddle of green liquid on the ground. When he touches it, he burns his hand, but soon realizes that his gloves are starting to mimic the same fluid. This is one of his unique abilities. If he comes into contact with a new toxin, he can reproduce it with his claws. Afterward, he splashes the liquid at Zanka and challenges him to avoid it. However, Zanka doesn't even make an attempt to dodge. He raises the ground in front of him, blocking most of the attack, though some debris still hits him. With a lifeless expression, he throws a rock and buries the raider beneath it. Meanwhile, Engine calls out to his opponent, who is hiding behind some trash and only stares back at him. Elsewhere, Bro and Dear Santa confront a raider dressed like a cowboy. The man declares that they can't use the chokers underground, so they won't be receiving any assistance. Ryu realizes this but doesn't seem overly concerned. Her opponent, Noerd, takes out a hair comb and begins using it, which helps Ryu deduce that if Noerda's instrument is a comb, her abilities likely involve her hair. Ryu then mocks Nord, claiming she has the advantage with her scissors. The scene shifts to Zanka, who is unsure whether he truly defeated Jabber. He is correct in thinking he didn't actually harm his opponent. Jabber's gloves transformed into an enormous version of themselves, which he used to create a barrier around himself. Jabber is ecstatic, expressing that it's rare for people to uncover his true self. Meanwhile, Zanka is still in shock, unable to believe that his opponent wasn't fighting with full strength before. Ryu isn't having much luck either. We find her collapsed on the floor. It turns out that Norda's comb generates static electricity, giving her hair an electric charge. The raider then mocks Ryu by echoing her own words, claiming that her ability is not a good match for the scissors. Chthoni uses her portals to observe and take notes on what everyone is doing. She is taken aback by Bro's conversation with his ally. Initially, Bro is having a seemingly normal discussion with the man, talking about deer and other everyday topics. However, the enemy then introduces himself as Bundus and immediately gets down to business. Bundus only joined the raiders to achieve his objectives. One of his goals is to obtain information, so he tells Bro that if he provides it, he will reveal the raiders' plan. When Bro agrees, Bundus mentions that he wants to know more about the cleaner's boss, Arca Corvus. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Corvus, who has just learned that some of the cleaners have gone missing. Semu advises him to gather more personnel for assistance and reprimands him for not wearing his choker. Still very calm, Corvus mentions that he knows a reliable information broker, so he is confident he will find out where his teammates are. Meanwhile, Bundus asks Bro a series of questions about Corvus, but the content surprises the cleaner. His enemy is only inquiring about normal things, such as Corvus's likes, his age, and similar topics. Bro is unsure why he wants to know this information, but decides to answer nonetheless. In return, Bundus reveals that the raiders have been creating their own trash beasts and plan to feed the cleaners to these monsters. Bro feels thrilled to have obtained such valuable information for a small price. However, Bundus points out that his own information is also significant. Not only does it make Corvus seem more human, but it also shows that the boss conceals his true self from his teammates. Zodal tells Rudo that after his fight with Jabber, the raider mentioned they had the same smell. This similarity is what intrigued him about the spherite. Now Zodal realizes they also share the same look in their eyes. Frustrated, Rudo lashes out at Zodal, yelling that he could have spoken to him like a normal person instead of starting a fight and involving the cleaners. Zodal, however, overpowers him with his words. He points out that even in the ground, some individuals view the garbage dropped by the sphere as gifts from God. Despite the fact that this waste can cause destruction and death, some people still regard it as something sacred. What seems strange to some can easily become accepted as common sense by others. Unfortunately, the common sense shaped by the corrupt can only lead to harmful outcomes. For him, the only way to truly free someone from their burdens is through a shock to the system. This jolt can bring a person's true essence to the surface, as it did for Rudo during his fight with Jabber. He then brings up Zanka. Will Zanka experience a similar transformation now that he is facing Jabber again? Or will the shock prove too overwhelming for him to handle? The anime resumes with the intense battle between Zanka and Jabber. Zanka is giving everything he has to evade the raiders' attacks. Meanwhile, Jabber is just as unpredictable as ever, but he's significantly stronger and fighting with more strategy. Suddenly, Jabber begins to spin, transforming into a sort of poisonous tornado. Even when Zanka manages to find an opening to strike, Jabber surprisingly halts his own attack and delivers a powerful kick to Zanka's gut. With Zanka on the ground, Jabber jumps on top of him, trying to pierce his opponent's face with his claws. However, Zanka stops him, clamping down with his teeth and demonstrating that he still has plenty of fight left in him. Jabber is taken aback, but the cleaner takes advantage of the moment, breaking one of Jabber's ribs and striking him in the same spot again. From that point forward, Zanka gains the upper hand in the fight and begins to overwhelm Jabber. However, that quickly proves to be insufficient. After surprising Zanka and delivering a kick, Jabber still manages to slash his legs. Zanka falls to the ground. Jabber then stands up and reveals that he is holding 3 toxins in his claws, one that causes numbness, another that induces euphoria, and the goo from earlier. Following this, he perforates Zanka. Flashback reveals Zanka's past, telling the story of his life before he became a cleaner. He was trained to be a Hellguard, a soldier assigned to protect the ground. However, unlike the cleaners, Hellguards deal with people rather than trash beasts. At school, students envied Zanka. His whole family was part of the Hellguard, and he was the top student in his class. They believed it was only natural that he would follow in their footsteps. In their eyes, they saw themselves as mediocre, while Zanka stood out as the talented one. Surprisingly, the boy agreed with them. He was different from how he is now. He saw himself as a cut above the rest. Although he would always put in a lot of effort, he believed himself to be talented. However, that was when, in his words, the real deal showed up. His teacher brought in a white-haired girl from the slums, saying he had high hopes for her. And she quickly proved him right. In her first sparring session, a girl named Hyo defeated the entire class, including Zanka. While most of the students came up with petty excuses to explain their losses, Zanka recognized her talent and told them she was amazing. As his classmates stared at him in awe, he calmly suggested that he should train more. However, that was just a facade. When he went to drink water, he tightened his grip and bit down on his lips so hard that it started to bleed. He couldn't shake the memory of the fight from his mind. Hyo had overwhelmed him and defeated him effortlessly, no matter what he tried. Zanka slammed his head against the wall, vowing to train harder and become the best. Suddenly, a girl appeared behind him, intensifying his frustration. She asked him about the Golden Throne, a symbol of being the top student and securing a spot in the Hellguard. No matter how much he praised its value, she just couldn't understand its significance. Soon they had a class where they had to choose their main weapon. That was when Zanka first noticed his love stick. 3 days later, while walking through the city, Injin and Ryo found him hiding in a hole. Zanka assumed that Hyo would choose the strongest looking weapon, like everyone else did, so he decided to pick a weaker one to confront him. However, the girl chose a regular sword. To make matters worse, the stick wasn't even supposed to be on the weapons table. It was placed there by mistake. Everyone looked at him, dumbfounded, and his teacher's expression was filled with disgust. Zanka shouted about how lame and mediocre he was, but it was Engine who reminded him that he could defy natural talent. Despite his harsh words, he continued to hold the stick. Engine mentioned that he would return to the city in the future and expressed his desire to see Zanka prove that he can defeat the real deal. Minutes later, Zanka crawled out of the hole, demonstrating that he still had fight left in him. The scene then shifts back to the battle, where Zanka gets up after taking a hit from Jabber. Although he is bleeding profusely, he calls out to his vital instrument and prepares for another round. However, that's just a hallucination. Jabber injected him with a toxin that creates believable illusions, so the cleaner didn't actually get up. Jabber sees Zanka laughing while under the influence of the hallucination and imagines that he is having a great time. In response, he starts maniacally laughing along with Zanka. Gita escapes from her previous location, but she still feels alone. While exploring her new surroundings, she comes across a large glowing red rock that has torn hands and knives pierced into it. At that moment, Jabber captures Zanka and starts dragging him toward the cave exit. He states that he must offer Zanka to the trash beast now. As Jabber celebrates his victory, he suddenly gets shot in the leg. Engine hears the gunshot from a distance, but can't check on Jabber yet because he still has to defeat his opponent, Fu. However, their fight hasn't even begun. Fu panics, having never started a fight before, but he is determined not to be the last one to finish his. After all, Zodal will be angry with him if he is. In a moment of cowardice, Fu steps forward and asks Injin to punch him first. The cleaner, wearing a wicked smile, responds with a firm no. The scene then goes back in time to show Ryu's duel. She creates wind by swinging her scissors, which helps her deflect Noerda's hair. As she observes her enemy, she realizes something and hides in the trash. Furious, Noerda unleashes all her electricity. Ryu smiles, having confirmed her theory. Norde needs to recharge her hair, which gives the cleaner more opportunities to attack. It won't be easy though. Ryu jumps into attack, but Nerd easily evades her. After extensive training and years of having long hair, she has learned to move it as if it were an extra limb. They begin fighting without weapons, occasionally using their instruments in an attempt to gain the upper hand. Their battle is intense, causing significant destruction to the surroundings. However, it is clear that Nord has the advantage. Both women are injured, but Ryu is coughing up a significant amount of blood. She asks if anyone will hear any noise coming from down there. Norde interprets this as a plea for help, but she is mistaken. Suddenly, Ryu pulls out a gun and shoots Norda twice. Norda bleeds out on the floor while Ryu continues to point the gun at her. Ryu was once a professional assassin, but she left that life behind and joined the cleaners. Although she promised Engine that she would never kill again, she still keeps her gun. However, she has made it clear that she will not harm Norda. The scene then returns to the present. Ryu knows that Jabber can withstand a lot of damage, so she shoots him several times, nearly leaving him for dead. Afterwards, she confirms that Zanka is alive and makes her escape. Meanwhile, Chthoni is updating Zodal on everything that's happening. He is surprised by the strength of the cleaners and tells her to proceed with the plan. She then teleports him and Rudo to the location of the red stone. Fantasia watches in fear, unnoticed, as Zodal explains his plan to Rudo. He touches the stone with his boots, and it responds to them. He then reveals that his code is part of the Watchmen series and that he attempted to create new entries for it. Zodal explains his plan to attack the sphere. When he touches the red stone with Amo's boots, the stone resonates, creating tentacle-like projections that reach up to the roof. While experimenting with vital instruments in his attempt to create new entries for the Watchmen series, Zodal made an important discovery. He realized he could use these instruments to develop a new type of trash beast. Although his main objective failed, he still gained a powerful weapon. Rudo recalls the beast he fought alongside Rio, but Zodal interrupts his thoughts. Zodal tells them they are about to fly to the sphere, and the scene shifts to reveal that they are inside a gigantic winged monster. One day when Rudo was a child, he had a fever dream where everyone was cursing his father, claiming that Rudo would turn out just like him. Even Regto, someone he looked up to, had said the same thing. This nightmare was triggered by pain in the boy's hands. The next day, Regto decided to give Rudo the gloves. As he handed them over, Rudo noticed that Regto had a book with the same symbol, indicating it was part of the Watchmen series. Rudo was shocked to discover that there were more items like his gloves and Amo's boots in existence. This revelation left him wondering how Regto had come to possess such a unique item. Zodal finds it peculiar that Rudo was on the sphere, yet seemed unaware of the vital instruments he possessed. More surprisingly, Rudo didn't lose his sanity while using one. Typically, most people go mad after prolonged use of these instruments, as they have sacrificed a part of their humanity. As Zodal contemplates this, a childlike figure emerges from nowhere, revealing glimpses of the man's past. He then unleashes his aura and tells Rudo that he must learn what someone with all the entries in the series can do. He reveals that their fight is part of another experiment. They are riding inside one of his fake trash beasts, which will cross the border. This way, they will discover who will die and who will survive. Upon hearing that she is inside a massive trash beast, Fantasia excitedly announces her presence and shouts that it means there will be a kaiju fight. As the entire creature begins to shake, we observe what the others are doing. Engine moves away from Fu to search for his comrades, prompting Fu to inform him that they are trapped inside a trash beast. Fu believes this information will provoke Engine to fight him, but instead, it only makes Engine more eager to destroy the creature. Meanwhile, Bundus tells Bro and Deer about their situation, preparing them for a fight. Although none of the cleaners are accustomed to battling humans, the mention of the trash monsters changes their mindset. Bro activates his instrument, which is a cloth, and wraps it around Deer, sending him flying into the wall. When Deer reaches the wall, he begins to punch it slowly. His blows are weak and seemingly ineffective at first. Bundus criticizes Bro for allowing the boy to hit the wall, thinking it's pointless. However, he soon hears a strange noise and realizes that Deer's strikes are nearly breaking the wall. That is Deer's power. Every time he strikes something, he absorbs energy from it, making himself stronger. Soon he breaks through the wall. Deer breaks a hole in the wall with his vital instrument. Bundus is impressed and finally seems ready to fight. However, the trash beast also appears to be on the move. As the giant creature prepares to take flight, Deer, Bro, and Bundus lose their footing. Several objects are hurled in their direction as they fall, and they don't know how to avoid them. Suddenly, a car crashes into the three of them. By an improbable stroke of luck, the car doesn't crush them. Instead, they fit perfectly inside it, as if preparing for a journey. Panicking, they band together to avoid other objects and find a way out. Fortunately, after more debris hits them and Deer nearly gets thrown out of the car, they strike gold. Bro spots a metal pole and uses his headband to grab it, turning the car around. They then zoom directly into one of the pipes and finally reach safety. They land right where Engine is, while still being followed by Fu, who is crying on the floor. Bundus discovers that the boy hasn't fought yet and considers him hopeless. As the cleaners contemplate how to locate their other teammates, Semu contacts them. They explain the entire situation to her, leading to a stern reprimand. She can't believe they ended up in such a predicament without defeating the beast. Additionally, she doesn't understand why she wasn't able to contact them if they weren't underground. To add to the confusion, she finds herself unable to communicate with Rudo, Zanka, and Rio. Engine seems to have an epiphany when she mentions this, but he chooses to remain silent. Instead, he decides it's time to take action. He explains that someone he owes gave him the name Engine, which means a person who connects others. Therefore, he will act as the bridge that brings all of them together. Semiyu relaxes and expresses her trust in Engine. Meanwhile, the other cleaners and supporters are already on their way to assist his team. At the same time, Zodal attempts to persuade Rudo to switch teams. He argues that their objectives are similar, unlike those of the cleaners, who only focus on defeating trash beasts. Therefore, he believes that being with the cleaners is a waste of time. Rudo is focused solely on Fantasia, who has collapsed on a stone spike below. He glances at his gloves and reveals that he has named them 3R. To him, the cleaners are not a waste. In fact, he believes that nothing is wasted, not even his conversation with Zodal. It is because of that conversation that he realizes he has teammates who care about him, something he did not experience while he was in the sphere. Rudo releases the stone he's holding and moves towards Fantasia. This angers Zodal, who leaps at Rudo and grabs him by the neck. Just as Zodal demands to know where Rudo's teammates are, Engine breaks a hole in the ground with his umbrella and declares his presence. Bundus is uncertain about Engine's ability to find his allies. Despite his doubts, the cleaner jumps out of the pipe, full of confidence, and activates his vital instrument. As he does this, the umbrella begins to spin and opens a hole in the ground. Deer and Bro follow him, and soon they are all together with Rudo. Suddenly, Ryu appears as well, carrying Zanka. At this point, the raiders are scattered, but the cleaners are once again united. However, as they come together, the beast begins to stir. The ground shifts once again, making it easier to walk and stand. Rudo doesn't waste a moment. He shouts to everyone, pointing to where the creature's heart lies, and runs toward it. He activates his instrument, turning it into a nail gun. However, as soon as he pulls the trigger, a prosthetic hand blocks the attack. Bundus emerges from the ground, stating that he's a newbie raider and must prove himself. Everyone except Gita, who is still on the ground, attempts to attack the heart. However, he uses multiple hands to block their attacks, still leaving one hand free. Most of these instruments have been in his possession for a long time, making them high quality. To complicate matters, each instrument possesses a different power that reflects the period in his life when he acquired it. Additionally, he completely negates the cleaner's abilities by using the appropriate hand against each attacker. Even when Rudo believes he has a clear shot, one of Bundus' prosthetic fingers is tracking him. Soon, a giant hand crushes Rudo's hideout, revealing his location. Meanwhile, Chthoni is reaching out to the fallen raiders. Jabber cannot move, but he expresses his contentment. Norda rises from a pile of trash, stating she isn't finished yet. However, when Chthoni emerges from a portal to speak with Zodal, she finds herself alone. After Bundus defeats all of the cleaners, Rudo has an important realization. His 3R was passed down to him. It originally belonged to Regto, who took great care of it. Rudo has also been caring for it throughout his life, which means he can become even stronger. Suddenly, an enormous red aura radiates from him. The nail gun grows larger, transforming into what looks like a cannon, complete with an X3 symbol. This prompts Engine to realize that Rudo has used his power 3 times on this single object, rather than applying it to 3 separate items. Rudo fires a shot, successfully breaking one of Bundus' hands. The raider uses his other prosthetic to block the nail, believing he has achieved victory. However, Rudo takes another shot, shattering all of Bundus' hands. Despite the destruction, the altered trajectory of the nails prevents them from hitting the core. Rudo becomes distracted as he feels a wave of sadness at seeing Bundus' instruments break. The cleaners are preparing to strike at the core, but they can sense Zodal's anger and hesitate. Suddenly, the man calls Bundus and tells him they are leaving. Bundus gets up, and the fragments of his instrument fly to his arm, where he stores them inside the first prosthetic arm he used, which serves as the core of his vital instrument. Rudo becomes furious with the raiders for simply abandoning the mission. However, Zodal states that he has already accomplished everything he set out to do. Now the only thing left is to use the cleaners as experimental subjects. It seems that the heroes are now too late to destroy the core, as another enemy has appeared. Nord surprises them with her abilities, which appear to be even stronger than before. There's so much electricity surrounding her that part of her body is on fire. A boy watches a storm of trash swirling outside. His father reassures him, saying they have nothing to worry about because the city's walls will keep them safe. Suddenly, a machine flies directly in front of them, nearly crashing into their house. Meanwhile, Zodal departs as Nord arrives to confront the cleaners. Before stepping into Chthoni's portal, he assures Rudo that he will collect all the entries in the Watchmen series. Nord spreads her hair throughout the area, harnessing her powers at full strength. Her electricity is so intense that it immobilizes all the cleaners. However, this comes at a cost as her hair begins to burn from the exertion. Meanwhile, Fu remains alone inside the pipe, feeling useless and wishing someone would give him orders. Suddenly, he begins to hear a voice that he refers to as Master He. The voice promises to take control and help him escape. Even as her hair burns, Nord continues her attack, but she begs the trash beast to reach the border soon. She doesn't know how much longer she can endure the pain. Ryu watches and laughs, thinking that she made a mistake by not killing Nord earlier. However, someone is still moving. Rudo is dragging himself toward the core, seemingly ignoring Norda's presence. She can't believe he has the strength to do that, but she knows she can't intensify her power any further. A noise captures her attention, and both she and Engine realize that part of the ceiling is cracking right where the nail gun had struck it. Suddenly, a hole bursts open and pulls Norda out. She tries to grab onto part of the ceiling, but ultimately lets go, smiling. As she is pulled away, memories flood back of the first time she met Zodal. He had complimented her hair and given her a comb that became an essential tool for her. She seems content as she reflects on this moment and gazes at the beautiful border surrounding her. Then she sees it. An enormous creature looms on the other side of the border. Although she can't see its face, it seems to be staring directly at her. She starts shouting something about the Watchmen series, insisting that she needs to tell Zodal. Suddenly, everything darkens, and she finds herself somewhere else entirely. The cleaners are still holding on, preventing themselves from being sucked out like Nowhere did when Gita wakes up. The girl remains calm and cheerful as always, growing even more excited when she realizes it's time to use her instrument. As Gita jumps around, her body begins to grow, and she transforms into a massive kaiju. She blocks the hole with her body, allowing the other cleaners to climb up and destroy the core. After that, the trash beast starts to crumble. Everyone clings to her, as her body will cushion their landing. Rudo is the last to grab onto Gita as he retrieves Amo's shoes before joining her. As soon as they land, the other cleaners and supporters arrive almost immediately. They find Zanka and get ready to treat their other teammates. When Rudo sees Grizz, he becomes so relaxed that he lies down on the floor and calls him Big Brother. Gita explains to Tamsi how Zodal created the trash beast. Tamsi reacts when Gita mentions the Watchmen series, suggesting that he is familiar with it. The cleaners then return to their headquarters, where August tries to talk to Rudo about clothes, but Rudo doesn't pay any attention. Since Rudo isn't accustomed to visiting sick people, the only thing on his mind is what he will say to Zanka. He's bringing flowers to wish for a speedy recovery, an act that Delman appreciates. However, Rudo wonders if he might be imposing his own cultural practices on them, yet he decides to continue with the gesture. When they enter the room, they are surprised to find Zanka already awake and meditating with his vital instrument. They had expected to see him still unconscious and injured, so they quietly close the door. Engine states that Zanka has already endured a lot, and as a result, he will grow stronger. In the future, Zanka will become even more remarkable than a genius. At that moment, Semiyu calls Engine to inform him that Remlin has come to apologize to Zanka. It turns out that she didn't cast the damage reduction spell on him. Since Zanka appeared to be the most serious person present, she decided to draw something unconventional. She made it so that his arm would grow larger when Zanka struck a specific pose. Despite learning the truth, Zanka doesn't get angry. He doesn't believe Remlin owes him an apology. Instead, he finds humor in her actions. Choosing not to fight back, he relies on the protection drawing for safety, ultimately attributing his predicament to his own weaknesses. After everyone else departs, Rudo stays behind, impressed by Zanka's determination. Zanka is clearly frustrated with himself for not being as helpful as he wanted to be, but he pushes that aside. Proudly, he declares that he will get stronger, which brings a smile to Rudo's face. However, Rudo's smile sometimes comes across as mocking, so the two of them end up fighting. Later on, Engine brings Zanka some get-well gifts, and they discuss about Rudo. His new objective is to enjoy his time on the ground and seek his revenge, which lifts their spirits, including Zanka's. Meanwhile, Zodal is in discussions with the raiders. He views the situation as an experiment, so he is not perturbed by the fact that the cleaners survived. He is solely focused on his next steps. The group has prepared another trash beast, and they need to enhance it to be able to cross the border. Zodal promotes Bundus and rewards him with an item labeled Canis Surbrek. He then assigns Bundus his first mission as a proper member, to find the creator of the chokers. Zodal suspects that they have encountered an entry from the Watchmen series, as their abilities extend throughout the entire ground. If the raiders want to collect the complete series, they will also need to locate the choker maker. While discussing his goals of reaching the sphere, it becomes evident that Nord's body is currently in an unknown location. Additionally, it appears that Hio, Zanka's rival, has found her. Rudo watches Remlin as she sits on a bench, looking sad and quiet. Just then, Zanka arrives to give him the encouragement he needs. Zanka knows that Rudo wants to learn how to extend a helping hand after his conversation with Amo. However, he needs to start somewhere, and cheering up Remlin is the perfect opportunity. Rudo confidently approaches the girl, holding a piece of paper, and asks for her help in learning to draw. She notices his nervousness and laughs, which helps him relax a bit. They soon join Dir and Gita to draw together. When Corvus sees them, he recalls that Remlin needs to decide what to paint for her city's mural, so he gives the kids a mission. They should go on a field trip to Canvas Town. As the oldest member of the group, Rudo sees himself as their protector, which makes him feel both excited and anxious. Unbeknownst to him, Engine and Bro are secretly watching over them to ensure their safety. However, Engine doesn't believe that anyone would attack them so soon. Meanwhile, Corvus is preparing for an unexpected meeting at the Cleaners HQ. When someone rings the doorbell, Samu discovers that the Hellguard has arrived. They came because they have learned about the Spherite living with the group. Engine notices that someone is foolish enough to be stalking the kids. As he keeps watch over the area, he discovers Fu, the raider, hiding in a corner. Samu realizes that Corvus sent Rudo and the kids on a field trip to keep them away when the Hellguard arrived. Meanwhile, the leader of the guards present in the area inquires about the ongoing fight against the raiders. Due to the giant trash beast falling apart, many were injured, prompting her to scold the guards. Corvus realizes that this isn't the topic they truly want to discuss. Kyuka Nijiku, the leader, then states her desire to take Rudo in. She explains that she needs to know everything she can about the Spherites, and that having the boy is essential for this purpose. Kyuka emphasizes that understanding the connection between the ground and the sphere is fundamental, and she mentions wanting to fill in the gaps known as the blank years. While the kids are in Whole City getting tattoos, they keep getting distracted. Fu observes them and reveals that his true intention isn't to attack. Rather, he wants someone to give him orders, specifically to find Engine. Master He, a doll that Fu carries, advises him to talk to the kids. When a man who is clearly a kidnapper shows up, he suggests that it's the perfect opportunity for the raider to act and make himself known. Rudo becomes furious with the man because he promised to give them candies but was clearly lying. In a fit of anger, Rudo knocks him out with a kick, frightening both Fu and He. Later, the kids head to Canvas Town, where they meet the adults who had been watching over them in secret. Remlin reveals a mural to Rudo, which is located on the ceiling at the entrance of the city. The tunnel is filled with drawings, prompting Rudo, Engine, and Remlin to lie on the ground to take a closer look at all of them. As they quietly observe the artwork, Rudo and Engine's eyes fall on a familiar drawing, the symbol on Rudo's gloves. Remlin explains that this is the logo of one of Mikasa Idol's best friends, the Undertaker, named Canis Surbrek. Astounded, Rudo reveals that his full name is Rudo Surbrek. In a post-credits scene, we find Amo locked inside a cage. When someone appears before her, she asks if it's Rudo, but the figure is someone else. The person smiling at her, who could potentially be her kidnapper, is none other than Tamsi. And that's the end of this season. If you like this video, give a like, and don't forget to like and subscribe.